This is Margaret in Windsor, and I'm going to try to get this up. Whether it makes sense to you, it would to some people, but it's kind of putting two things together that happened in a pattern and some kind of timeline. But anyway, it happened to me February the 1st, on last Friday. What's today, Monday? Uh, just Monday, yeah. Okay. My father's Edward VIII, who never married Wallace Simpson. She married a double. In fact, there were several doubles. And they went around doing bad behavior, some so ludicrous, and it was being attributed to my father when it wasn't him. My father would not take orders from the Illuminati, so they shut him down. They got rid of him. They had that much power, character assassination. They got rid of my mom, Claudia Ruth O'Keefe Windsor. My father's mother was queen. And so my father was, well, whether he actually abdicated, I'm not sure. He made uh, papers that were legal with the channels, that if he had an heir born, heir would still inherit. So the day I was born Queen Victoria II, heir to the British crown, the real queen then, the day I was born, because it would bring my father back as my guardian and power of attorney. And he did go back for a small while because someone from Australia, and I remembered it when, and I got this thing about goes way back, I would collect cups. If I was a collector, well, I'd collect art first of all, but I always had this thing about cups and good coffee cups, and Anyway, I remember a little bit of that. It was my father was back and with me and my mom in one of the castles with, I'm thinking it had to have been his brother illegal George the Sixth, the Illuminati installed. And he was on the right of my dad. My dad was next to me, and I remember the cup, and George went into a rage at my father. And anyway, in the cup, it had Queen Victoria II on it. It was over the fire case on the mantle. Now I want to get to this part. I was brought over to Moulton in 41, given the name of a dead twin, Peggy Ann Dempsey. I married a Childer, so I still have to use that name. Carl was the twin, and he was murdered about a month after birth. So they were about a year older than me, I believe. Now, really the part I wanted to get to, I've been telling about mind control murders and patterns and the Tesla files that were stolen. And I was writing about those in 76, and murders you can create an illness or cure it. And one of the doctors I had worked for had actually put a chip, I mean, what are you going to call it? He was putting a stent or something in a heart bypass, it turned out. Anyway, that's a way you can control one's decision making, excuse me, because this man was head of Dixon Tomato. Sounds a little bitty place, but it wasn't. It was produce. It was quite large. It was on Powers Ferry, not a couple blocks down from where Moonraker and I was living on Powers Ferry Place. Anyway, it was their home office, and the bookkeeper. Well, I'm not going to go any further. Anyway, this chip put in the. He was either president. He wasn't. He was president, I think, under Dixon, and then Dixon's son, Gary, I believe, was next. Okay, vice president. Chairman of the board would have been the father. Okay, but you can control people's decision making without them knowing. You can create an illness or cure it. And it turns out, and you can program people, just like I'm saying, that to go up and shoot like they did George Wallace or Kennedy, who helped kidnap me. JFK did. Larry Flint was shot by a program shooter. So, or you can program them to shoot like the Virginia Tech. That's how these rash of shootings where colleges and it's been going on for a long time. You just didn't know it because mind control, you cannot see. It's done with signals. Hamset used to be what they used, but now it's so they got so many communication satellites and all this that they don't need that anymore. Except I was told in the end times the Hamsets are the only thing that's going to save some people. So anyway, I want this is something I want to tell here. I'll give a little background. So let me get to this. I've been telling about the mind control murders, and Larry Flint was shot in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and I'm doing the book in Marietta. And he was shot by a program shooter in March, on March the 6th of 78. I had a letter from the FBI, ongoing investigation, national security involved. So things got bad. I was almost killed again, April Fool Day of 80. And I'm going to go back to this now. What I was going to put up, and it won't go up, I bet. Like clockwork, I go and get my small amount out of the bank. Okay. I've been doing that for a long, long time, and really at this certain bank for a long, long time. Now then, I had my identity I have to use. I had to go and pick it up at the post office. I have a post office box because I've had to move around so much. So I got that, and I was so happy. I thought I've got that done, have that done, so there shouldn't be a problem with anything. That was on the 31st, last Thursday. So I'm supposed to get my check and or get my account when checks, I'm not going to go into detail. If your Social Security, or you can understand. My arm's getting tired. Let me try this. Okay. I was real sick, and you have to make someone helps me with some of my rides, and I have to call 2 days ahead. So the problem was that was Thursday. I got really sick in the night and needed to go to urgent care. Had a problem with that, started out, and then finally that ended up okay. And I got to the bank. I got to the bank and walked in. And this is the first time this has ever happened. And it's what happened later. You might excuse it once, but I've been through this kind of thing again. Certain people can make your life hell. They can do a lot of things. Like as it stands, I could be run from bank to bank, and with the technology that's being used, they can just, and they'll do it. They can just tell them to say, hey, the computer's down. And they can just keep saying the computer's down. Who am I going to call? The cops? They're not going to do anything. I can't get an attorney. So it's one of those things that then they can refer you out to the ATM, and then you have to go through to get your money out. As little as it may be, I think you have to get it. You can get $80 out each time, so you can stand out there for a bit. When there's by law, they're supposed to give you your money. If you call for all of it out of your account, that's what you're supposed to get. They can charge you a small fee, but by law, and I even went today, call someone, and that's true. So this was the first time that ever happened. That it was a computer. It was down. Well, I didn't believe it for one moment. And here I just got my ID, well, the one I have to use prior. Okay, the day before. And so now here I walk down to Kroger. I have to walk, and I can barely walk. I walk to Kroger, and I go in, and okay, how's this? I didn't have my money. So I had a few that I was going to pay rent, bucks saved, for once, really. And I walked in, and I want to get into this. Someone sent me a money order a couple months ago now. Well, I go into this Kroger store all the time, and especially on the first of the month. just like I do to the bank, okay? And I couldn't get my money there unless, and I didn't even try it when she said that. I knew, I'm in tune to this. I knew something was wrong. This has never happened before, and I know what they do with it. They don't have to. How am I going to prove that their computer wasn't? And I can tell you this, tomorrow if I went out to another one, they can do the same thing to me, keep bouncing me around. I have to get a cab. I can't go walking from bank to bank. You get my gist? A few taxi cabs and I wouldn't have a penny left anyway. And the people that help me with the rides, I'm very limited, very limited. They're not going to help me with that. Okay, now I was at the grocery store from the bank, and this is where I had had a money order sent to me, and they wouldn't let me have it. There was no reason on earth that they shouldn't have handed it to me. It was in the account. It was okay. So it went on, and finally, 30 days later, I got it. All right. The gentleman that was the manager, his name is Jeremiah. Now, that's not going to mean a lot to you. It does to me, because in time, Jeremiah was a bullfrog, was a good friend of mine. There's something to do there, and I'm not going to try to explain it other than when I went out to Larry Flint's, if you followed me on this, in 83, twice in October, to his home in Bel Air. The first time I went out, it was he took me to the lily pad room. So you get into Jeremiah was a bullfrog, the lily pad, and all this. Bear with me, because I know what I'm talking about. I've lived it. So that was out at Mr. Flint's, and I had a room one night, and I guess, was it one? Yeah, one night. And next time I went out there, it was the day of the campaign, which I didn't win. But anyway, it was like when I left, walked out, I was introduced to a movie producer by Mr. Flint. And in that night when I was flown in there from Atlanta, suddenly this time he doesn't have a room. They're all filled up, and I'm pushing him around in a wheelchair, looking indoors, and he's saying rooms, and he's saying, "Oh no, that one's filled up." And then he told me about the parody about Jerry Falwell over here in Lynchburg next door that was going to be published in Hustler. And then I never knew that I was going to end up here in Roanoke, but when I did, or prior to that, was that while I was here? Larry Flint was sued by Jerry Falwell for the parody that was published in Hustler magazine. Now, ask the question, why did Mr. Flint show me the galley proofs back then you had of the parody about Jerry Falwell at Liberty University? And here I end up here, and he's been sued here, and the movie has its first opening here. There was only, I think, about 6 showings nationwide. The first showings, and one of them was here on my birthday, the one I use anyway. So anyway, I'm giving you a little background. So that's Jeremiah, was the manager who said I couldn't have it. Or, his crew did. I called him, and he was going to talk to him, and I went back, I believe the second time, still couldn't get it. I go back the third time, and I have it. And I never get to see him, though, these 3 times, Jeremiah. So now then, I walk in a couple of days ago from the bank, couldn't get my money, walk in the door, and here's Jeremiah with his name tag. Well, I kind of grinned at him. I didn't like what had happened to me, but I got the bit of money, a little bit, whatever. Nobody's business, wasn't all that much, but I sure was glad to get it. Finally. Okay, now then, about the time I said, "Hi," so they were standing there. I'd never seen him, let me remind you. He's standing there right in the door where I got to bump into him almost. And I said, "So you're Jeremiah?" And I laughed, and he said, "Yes." About that time, a lady right here on the other side of him broke a big bottle of, I don't know what it was, wine or something. I don't know if they sell wine, but it was a big bottle of something. And I don't know. I'll leave it at that because you're talking about widespread. I've seen it done too many times. Mind control, and too many people have it. They don't even know it. So anyway, I'm in the store and I'm walking around. Well, I have to get the riding ones. I can't walk hardly. So I'm around at the aisle, and I know I'm leaving something out here. So it has to do a little bit with Jeremiah, and I couldn't get the money order for a month, etc., which was illegal, quite illegal. Okay, now I went on around to the back aisle where the frozen aisles, and they're tall and long, and I am looking. I love fish, and I'm trying to get up and out. I can stand up. It's a little hard to get out of that and stand up and get some fish or burritos, I think, were there. Well, I looked up, and here's this woman, and she is dressed so immaculate, and she has these colors that are so blended and expensive, out of sight. I used to have a few clothes. They were never anything expensive like that, but they were nice at one time, for a short period of time anyway. But she had on a hat. It was one that came down. It was a real pretty hat. Her hair was just like, it was all gray. And I looked at her eyes. That's what got me. And I know it couldn't have been Elizabeth, my cousin, the illegal monarch, standing in the supermarket. But there she is. She's standing right there with the cart. Whether she had anything in it, I don't even remember. I laughed because it took me off guard. I mean, obviously, I'm thinking, well, she sure looks like her. She could fool most anybody. Her height and everything, and the beautiful clothes she had on. And I said, has anybody ever told you that you look just like Elizabeth? And she said no, and I couldn't detect an accent because she really didn't say anything that much. And I said, you sure do. And I don't know if I said something else to her. I said, I complimented her on her clothes, and she said, thank you. So I said, well, we stood there a few minutes looking at each other. It was really weird. I could have sworn she was Elizabeth, really. I know it wasn't, but it sure looked like her to me. And her eyes are very distinct, in her nose and that area. Now, I said, well, if you ever hear of me, remember me, because I said something about I didn't like Elizabeth. And well, she's got to have been told. She's a double, I'm sure. I mean, that wasn't Elizabeth, and she's one heck of a double, look-alike. And so she must have been told this before and over. So now then I keep going, pushing the cart around. And it was a little bit, I come back to the frozen foods, and I'm going in the opposite direction. And again, she's coming at me from this direction. And when we meet, she smiles, and I said, well, we meet again. And I didn't say it in that tone of voice, because at that time I thought she was a double. Common sense tells you it was. So she should be on a camera there somewhere. Amen on that one. There's a camera got to caught this woman. Nobody else is paying attention to her. But then who thinks that Elizabeth is running around in a supermarket? Well, I can remember, this is here, and I know it wasn't her. Common sense tells me that. But I can remember a big to-do not all that many years ago when she first